Yeah, probably. Oh, that's Riri, not Ray Ray.
Right, gotcha.
Yeah, Riri.
In the future.
Hey guys, and welcome back to another episode of Reinvent Yourself with Ray Ray. Of course, I'm Ray
Oh,
Ray,
maybe it is Ray
and
Ray. You
today's
said Ray Ray.
subject is time travel. Now, today's subject is time travel because on my poll that I posted a couple of weeks ago on my channel, this is what you selected. So I always talk about what you guys want me to talk about. So here we go. Now, time travel is one of my most favorite subjects, of course. And if you've watched some of the previous videos that I've made in this series, then you should have a good understanding of why, because I like to talk about how, consciousness really is non-local, non-linear, and that all realities, all things actually exist right now. It's like my understanding of time is like the way you have cable television in your home. You may be watching, I don't know, the sports or, you know, listening to some of the music channels or watching the news or whatever you like to watch on the TV. But while you're focusing on one channel, you're also aware that simultaneously there are other channels that are running. They all exist now. It's just that your focus is on the channel that you want to watch. And in the same way, this incarnation, you know, this is the channel that you're focused on right now. Or in your oversoul collective, of course, there are past lives that are future lives as well, but they're all happening right now. Thus, they're all accessible right now as well. And if you have the appropriate level of consciousness, you're able to actually tap into some of those lives that you have had before or that you will have in the future as well. So time, even though the linear space-time framework of physical reality is a valid one, because, while we're existing in this physical domain, there is a before and after, and the experience of time for sure is a real thing. But ultimately, it is still just smoke and mirrors, and especially from the perspective of spirit. Okay. Now, let's get more technical and scientific here because time travel is obviously something that has been spoken of by some of the greatest scientists, in recent history. Einstein, for example, with his theory of relativity, according to that theory, and most physicists will agree with this, we can travel into the future, according to that theory. We just don't really have the right amount of energy to create an actual time machine at the moment. But my response to that is that our understanding of physics is still in its relative infancy, pun intended. It was only a few hundred years ago that a guy sitting under a tree called Isaac Newton, realized that when an apple falls from a tree, it hits the ground, and oh, we've discovered the law of gravity. How long did it take for us to figure that out? Oh, things are, magnetically attracted to the earth. Wow. What is keeping us, away from the sun, for example? What is keeping us in orbit with the sun? Why don't we just fly into it? These things have only just been discovered recently. So our understanding of physics is really still pretty primitive, to be honest. And a lot of scientists, their science has become a bit of a religion for them, to be honest. Now, I'm not negating the amazing discoveries and realizations that society has helped our society have, of course. I'm all for that. But you've got to put it in its place, and our understanding of physics, our understanding of the universe and science as a whole is constantly shedding its skin and being reborn anew. So it's important for us just to recognize that some of the things that we hold true today, we may not hold true in the coming decades. However, there's one thing I'd like to challenge when it comes to Einstein's theory and some of the claims of some of these physicists, okay? Now, I'm not a physicist, first and foremost. I'm more of a metaphysician, or whatever you want to call it. And some of you may laugh at that, and that's fine too. We're all just sharing our perspectives and our experiences. We all want the same thing ultimately, which is to come to a deeper understanding of the true structure and nature of the universe. However, some of these scientists claim that it's impossible to go back in time, according to Einstein's theory of relativity. My response to that is maybe the theory is incomplete. Hear me out, okay? So imagine yourself as a little child, okay? Because here I want to illustrate how going backwards is still going forwards in time, okay? So this is a really important thing to understand. Now, I need you to listen to me carefully here. So imagine yourself when you were a child, maybe 5, 6 years old. You know that your childhood has already happened. It's in the past from this perspective, yeah? You know what happened. Now, let's just imagine tomorrow time travel was discovered and you bought a time machine, right? You just bought a time machine and you thought, I know, I'm going to go back in time and visit my childlike self. I'm going to visit my 7-year-old self. So you jump in the time machine and you do just that. You travel back in time and you go, and meet your 7-year-old self and you have a good time with them. You shake their hand, you talk to them, you tell them not to be afraid of certain things in the future, blah, blah, blah. However, from a linear perspective, that is still going forward because you as a child, without the future self coming back in time, okay, without the future self coming back in time to talk to them, has already happened. That reality will always be that reality because it's happened that way. When you have a time machine and you go back in time to meet your younger self, you're actually creating a parallel reality. Okay, it's a parallel reality. It's another version of that past where you as an adult have come back to meet your past self. So then can you see how it's still forward in time? Because the subsequent frames, from you being a child without a time machine and then growing up and then finding a time machine and then going back to when you were a child and meeting your younger self in that time machine is still, all 3 frames, they all still exist now. They all happen, all realities exist, all potentials exist. Thus, going backwards in time is still going forwards because you can never walk through the same river twice. What has happened always will be what has happened. But when you want to try and alter the past, so to speak, you're never altering the timeline that you're on. You're always creating a new timeline and jumping to a new parallel reality to interact with different versions of yourself and so on. So that is something, and you can quote me on this and you can vote me on this and you can even call me crazy if you want and say, oh, Ray with his fucking out there theories and everything. But I just guarantee you that this is something that our physicists will come to understand within the next 50 to 100 years. Obviously, I probably won't be here, but maybe, they'll come back in time at some point and do it. And this is another thing I want to challenge. Stephen Hawking, great scientist. I love his contribution to our society. I've got a lot of time for him. Obviously, I'm British, just like him. But one quote of his really does my head in. And he says this: if time travel is ever going to be a possibility, I'm paraphrasing here, I might be a little incorrect, but he said something along these lines. He said, if time travel is true, then why aren't visitors from the future coming back to tell us? And that is a great point that he makes. That is a fucking amazing question, and that is a question that only brilliant minds like him could even conceive of. However, I do believe we are getting those time travelers. I think they are coming. And I think a lot of the UFOs and, UAPs and a lot of the unidentified aerial objects in our sky, that we just don't know what they are. I sincerely believe a lot of those are future human beings who are coming back in time. I sincerely believe that. But again, we go back into, the whole debate of, well, is it really aliens or whatever? Doesn't really matter, but that's my perspective on it. I believe that people, are having all sorts of experiences, whether in meditation, with extraterrestrials, even people who go ghost hunting, they have time slips and they can peer into people living their lives from different time zones. That's what a lot of people call ghosts. And I'm going to go into spirits and ghosts in the next video. How, a lot of people are misinterpreting what they perceive as ghosts as just parallel realities being played out, because all things exist simultaneously. All things exist right here. My favorite movie is Back to the Future. And even in Back to the Future, I think it's Back to the Future 2, where, he buys this sports almanac and, he wants to change his reality. And Biff gets it, obviously, and changes his reality instead. But even in that movie, you can see when the doc's got the chalkboard and he's explaining that it's always a parallel reality that's created whenever you want to make changes in the past. It always is, because the past always exists as it has done. So your childhood, the childhood that you experienced, where you didn't, meet a time traveler from the future or the future self or whatever, that experience, that whole timeline exists as it is, and it always will. But whenever you want to go back, it's always a split off reality, a parallel reality. So you can see how time travel also is, connected to ideas such as the Mandela effect, even synchronicity as well. Synchronicity, the definition of the word is a coincidence in time, but there are no coincidences in my opinion. But will we be able to actually time travel in the future? I mean, I honestly think it's already happening, because if all things already exist now, then of course it's happening, like my response to Stephen Hawking's question then. It has to be, because how do you explain like these ships that are just appearing out of nowhere and then just blinking out of nowhere? Like, space is just too damn vast and too damn big for, a civilization to be able to move from one star system to another. I know I said a lot of the a lot of the ships are human beings. I do believe that, from parallel future realities, but also some of them are extraterrestrial as well. And I've actually had contact with those beings as well. So I'm not talking out of my ass. It's not a theory. My experiences validate everything that I'm saying here. But space is just too damn big for a craft to be able to, maneuver from point A to point B, no matter how fast it's going, at the speed of light, which is 186,000 miles per second. It would take us roughly 2 million years to reach the closest, major galaxy to us, which is the Andromeda Galaxy. And that's at the speed of light, 2 million years. Obviously, the only way to get to different star systems is through wormholes, and it is obviously through bending the fabric of space and time itself. And a lot of these extraterrestrials are actually using consciousness in, technologies that interface with their consciousness, which they understand is non-local, is non-linear, which helps them arrive to wherever they want to go in the universe instantaneously. And that's why, there's so much footage of these ships just, appearing out of nowhere and then just disappearing, because they go into that subtle astral realm to, to tunnel through various timelines, etc. I think the more and more our society is awakening to who, collectively who we truly are, the more the frequency of the planet is ascending, etc., then the more and more slippery our perception of time is becoming. We're becoming more aware of the fact that there are parallel realities, that there are subtle changes in the different realities that we experience. That's why the Mandela effect, for example, has rose to prominence in the last couple of decades, because people are noticing more and more and more that they keep on shifting from one parallel reality to another, and each reality is slightly different to the other, and people are noticing those changes as well. So my viewers, let me ask you, do you believe we're going to time travel in the future? What do you think about some of the points that I made? I'd love to hear your thoughts. Even if you totally disagree with me, I'm fine with that. I can take it. I'm thick-skinned. Oh yeah, one thing I want to say before I end this, actually.
I'm going to pause him there because I don't want to get him into another tirade. He provides an excellent question. Right? And so when talking about time magic, right, like that's a favorite of mine. When I was a kid, I called forth all the magical knowledge that I would have upon my deathbed, that I might know it then. So whatever life I live out till I die, I know beforehand.
Right.
So I've seen my death more times than I can count in a billion different ways, right? And so by doing that, it allows me to channel who I think I am and who I want to become, right? So that's one really great application of time sorcery. Second application is there are certain applications of it when using those big grids that I use the anchors for with the astrological placements, the planetary ones and the elemental ones. Once those get in alignment, right, you create a singularity moment because everything in time and creation is focused around a single point of your intent. So from that moment, in that environment, when that intent comes to pass, boom, new timeline.
Right.
Foundational time magic. Like what he's talking about absolutely happens. Absolutely. You can end up doing a spell by accident, end up in a deja vu moment, repeat the thing over, and not do that spell again. And you just suddenly have deja vu, but you take a different course, right? Yeah. It's the awareness of your deja vu when you're in the moment of the deja vu, because you've had the thing happen. It's happening again. Now it happens in a different way, so you can change your outcome better.
All right. Yeah, sometimes.
That, yeah, nonlinear attachment models. Like it's such a huge pain in the ass. But very viable when it comes to higher level sorcery. So if something is interesting like that for you, then please feel free to reach out.